We all use staff in Rollercoaster Tycoon, but are we using them in the best possible way? Full disclosure here, I hardly ever bother with security or with entertainers, but should I? We'll start with a look at the two most used staff members, handymen and mechanics. Both are absolutely essential to running any park. I tried to beat Forest Frontiers without hiring any staff. I played a regular game just without staff, and needless to say, I failed. I ended with 5 broken rides, guests stuck on those rides, paths so disgusting I won the most untidy park award, and a plummeting park rating below 200. Even when I restarted the scenario and tried to win by working around the no staff problem, that was building rides that don't break down like the maze and low nausea only rides to avoid vomit covered paths, well, I passed. But that was in the easiest scenario of them all, and my park rating was beginning to fall. In a scenario which had a 2 or 3 year requirement, I would certainly have failed. So that's a Rollercoaster Tycoon 101 out of the way. Handymen and mechanics are essential. Make sure you hire them. Looking first at handymen, they can do up to 4 things. I almost always untick the mow grass box because with this enabled they spend so long on the grass that pathways seem to get neglected. If I ever wanted mowed lawn, I would usually hire handymen specifically for this task. Mowed lawn doesn't seem to contribute in any way to things like the most beautiful park award, it just looks aesthetically pleasing for your own eyes. Similarly, watering gardens has no impact. The gardens lose their colour over time, but still contribute to the excitement rating of nearby rides just as much as when they are in bloom. But sweeping footpaths and emptying litter bins are incredibly important jobs. If handymen don't sweep paths, your walkways will become covered in vomit over time, especially around high nausea rides. This will lead to guests complaining about disgusting paths, hurting their mood, your park rating, and increasing your chances of winning the most untidy park award. If you have plenty of handymen and still have a problem with vomit in your park, check out my video on controlling nausea. Litter has pretty much the same impact as vomit, but it is even more severe on your park rating. You lose 4 park rating points for every piece of litter dropped, so as well as having ample trash cans, make sure you have enough handymen to empty them, because once they are full, guests won't be able to use them and instead will drop litter on the floor. Then there is the placement of handymen. Work zones are pretty essential in my opinion, especially around high nausea rides. Without managing your staff work zones, exit paths of vomit-inducing coasters will quickly become disgusting. I usually set a work area of 10 grids, but if that area involves lots of extra or double pathways, you may want an even tighter area. And make sure you don't cut your handymen off from work areas. They abide strictly to their zones, so if they can't reach part of their zone, their area won't ever be looked after by a handyman. And this is where I treat mechanics differently. I don't set work zones. My fear in doing that is that if I have one area where mechanics are already busy fixing or inspecting a ride and another breaks down, the length of time that ride is out of action will be prolonged. I prefer to have plenty of mechanics roaming the park. The nearest available mechanic will always be called to a breakdown, and their natural movements to inspect rides should mean there is never one too far away. Some players do like to give some big ticket rides their own mechanic with a work area set specifically to that ride. It's not a bad tactic as it will mean breakdowns are always resolved quickly. As well as fixing broken down rides, mechanics also inspect the rides. How important is this? Well, actually, very important. Inspections reduce the chance of a ride breaking down, so the more often the inspections, the lower the chance of having a breakdown. So I always set my rides, especially big ticket ones, to be inspected every 10 minutes. But that does come at a financial cost, as you will need enough mechanics to cover all of these inspections and still have some available mechanics to deal with breakdowns. But I'd say it's worth it. You keep guest throughput high, meaning more ticket revenue, and as breakdowns can sometimes result in crashes, the fewer breakdowns the better. Just keep an eye on how many free mechanics you have at any stage. If they are all busy inspecting or fixing rides, that's when you need to hire some more. So onto security. Are they worth it? Well, if your guests are happy and your handymen are doing their jobs, you won't need security. Angry guests get annoyed by dirty pavements and then trash your benches, litter bins and lampposts. If your paths are clean and guests are happy, you won't have angry guests and therefore won't need security. So how about entertainers? Well, their effect is simple. They make your guests happier. If you have a good park with a good park rating, generally your guests will be happy enough without seeing a guy in a costume. But entertainers can be useful to combating long ride queues if you are suffering from these. Placing an entertainer within patrol areas set to the queue line will keep guests entertained and therefore less likely to complain about their long queue time. But long queues aren't favourable anyway, as they keep guests from paying for other rides, so unless you really need a long queue for some reason, it's best to keep the queues a little bit shorter and have guests go off and ride something else. For me, I rarely need security or entertainers because if I have a good park, I have happy guests, and they don't need entertaining or to be prevented from damaging things. So it's an easy win on your budget to restrict your staff to just handymen and mechanics. But what do you do? Use the comments to let me know if you have any compelling arguments why security or entertainers should be used. But for now, thank you for watching this video, and I'll be back very soon with another guide for Rollercoaster Tycoon Classic.